Friends, we gradually come to the end of the first day of the conference, Startup Village 2021. At conclusion, we have the best social responsibility, taking care of the environment, effective management, governance for sustainable development. These notions, which we consider to be attributes of large companies, but whether startups should consider these trends, how market leaders implement their strategies in sustainable development, what young entrepreneurs need to know about this, and how SDGs in company strategy impact its perception by Generation Z. So we have sustainable development formula. How can startups benefit from SDGs? Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Sergey Dutov. I'm Skolkovo Foundation Business Development Director and also I'm founder of the product IE for Global Development and Sustainable Development. Welcome to Startup Village. We are very lucky to have this kind of weather, and I'm especially surprised by the fact that over 3,000 connections online to our conference, which is great. So we'll be discussing today Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and how they're related to startups and corporations. Yesterday, I was reading the program of St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and every second session are related to ESG. So how our company will deal with global problems related to sustainable development, how we have transformed our strategy to be ESG-compliant. And also, the United Nations announced 17 Sustainable Development Goals, from elimination of hunger to getting rid of all types of inequality, from smart cities to local communities. So it sounds like there's no place for startups in that, but it's not true. And our speakers will cover a whole range of questions, and they will talk about drivers for corporations in ESG and for startups as well. In the beginning, I would like to introduce our today's speakers. Andrei Skorochkin, Accenture Managing Director. Yanina Novitskaya, Cartier Managing Director in Russia. Stephen Ibaraki, Reds Capital Chairman. X-Prize and Global Summit. Maria Vereshchagina, Head of CSR and Sustainable Development Tinkoff. Then we have Ansul Sonak, Intel Corporation Senior Director. Then we have Gazprom Bank and Daria Chernozub. So we'd like to start with Andrei to cover key trends in the area of sustainable development and ESG. In fact, Accenture has been a tech company with leading insights into many industries. I'm very happy to see how your stock prices go up. That confirms your deep understanding of many areas. Andrei, over to you. I'm very happy about stock price, being a shareholder. I agree with that. Good evening, colleagues. When we talk about the trends, I should put this on, right? Yeah, speaking of technologies, yeah, how does it work here? Okay, there it is. And so the topic of sustainable development is a broad issue, which is good and bad at the same time. It's bad because everybody tries to find their own way, and they try to figure out what is the driver of sustainable development, what it's all about, why everybody started talking about it all of a sudden, at least here in Russia. But it's a good thing, because in this broad topic, everybody can find something for themselves, something that can attract them. Another positive thing from the perspective that we have in our practice, in our experience, that this topic has become irreversible, and its magnitude will be growing because of societal demand. You can see that on the screen that 80% of consumers plan to buy more environmentally friendly products, and Z generation, I don't know who are those, 76% of them think that companies should pay attention to social issues and environmental problems as well. And even large oil and gas company that some of them were here. So young people do not work for them because they don't want to work for money. They want to work for the idea. They want to change this world. They don't want to buy, plastic cups because recycling is not organized for plastic, etc., etc. So that sets new trends for corporations, and I like that because corporations will have no choice. They will have to change their technologies about recycling, also in terms of being environmentally friendly, and carbon emissions and principles of doing business. And the figure that you can see there confirm that 2/3 of investors are interested in sustainable development. Most of managers think that the agenda of sustainable development in the companies is a key success factor. On the whole, we don't have to continue because my time is limited, but the idea is that in this agenda, everybody can find something for themselves. If we talk about startups, major tech companies are interested in finding innovations, in finding new solutions to implement this agenda. When we talk about recycling, when we talk about the reuse of raw materials, decarbonization, etc., all those things are technology intensive. And it's clear that one company cannot resolve them itself. So that's why you need an ecosystem. Multiple technologies are being attracted, and there's a lot of hunger in the market. So, but it's doable, and all the solutions which are out there in the market, and that can help companies to advance towards these goals, those solutions are met with demand, and the relevance of this topic will be increasing. So we perceive this, we take this situation as a positive one. Just one question. So the explosive growth of the capitalization of your company, is that because you are ESG compliant? Is it really part of your life? So reasons are multiple, but ESG is a topic number one for the next few years. Accenture has this rule: for every 3 years, we select several topics to be drivers for the company, and ESG is new digital. So basically, that hype about digital technologies that has been around, we think that sustainable development is a basic foundation for any successful company, so that business will be developing. Because this is not only what we give to our clients, but also as a company we have objectives on carbon neutrality with CO2 and all the inclusion and diversity programs and all the programs related to social responsibility. They're actively implemented, and we declare ourselves as being one of the market leaders. It's a basic factor, it's a basic driver for competitive advantages. But this Z generation, which is now part of our younger personnel, but eventually they'll become older and they'll replace people like myself, and they will be living in this new normality, in that new system. Thank you very much for that. And they will replace people like myself as well. But it's important for companies and startups to identify key findings. So demand for sustainable development in corporations is a long-term trend. SDGs until 2030s have been defined. For Accenture, this is part of their agenda for the following 3 years. So a lot of attention should be given to that. I would like to give the floor to Yanina, and she'll tell us about their initiatives in SDG and tech entrepreneurship. I saw today that Yanina was consulting tech entrepreneurs here, not just tech entrepreneurs. So tell us more about that. Thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues, participants. And the weather is so fine, and what a great place, this village. And it's a great opportunity for us to share how we work with startups and ESG agenda. All of that is very close to our values, because Cartier has this pioneering spirit. We always were attracted progressive thinking people from arts, from sciences, from culture. So projects and initiatives of the Cartier House are related to innovations and project support. Support for projects that change our lives, and ESG is also at the top of our agenda, which is reflected in many our initiatives. Andrei already said that consumer patterns do change, and I totally agree with that. Luxury industry is changing as well. Our clients, especially younger people, expect from companies, major companies, responsible action and sustainable business practices. So that's why when we see this shift among our clients, we started to not only to pay a lot of attention to ESG agenda, because it's been part of our agenda for quite a long time, but we started to communicate about it. Because if you're silent about it, that can mean that you're not active in that area. So in our corporate responsibility area, we have annual International Women Impact Entrepreneurship Program, which is the largest international award for women social entrepreneurship. And what brings together those startups that use our platform is a mandatory presence and also the response to one of the 17 SDGs. So that award has been around for 15 years. It was implemented in 2006 with INSEAD Business School and also with the support of McKinsey. We are very proud of this platform because over these 15 years we supported over 260 startups, so which are SDG-compliant, and their leaders are women from all parts of the world. So annually we select 24 finalists from different regions of the world, and this year we are very proud that we have a special nomination in science and technology that reflects the importance of tech projects to deal with global problems of this world. which is the largest international award. I would like to stress that. They get $100,000 to finalists get $30,000, and most importantly, the platform is very important because it brings together super progressive, super creative women with very serious attitudes and stable desire to change our lives and our planet for the better and leave all the good things to our children. And this is a platform where you can share opinions, find support, find international contacts. We had two finalists from Russia. You may have Marie Rossman, I think it's been communicated. Hydrobe was founded by her. She became our finalist in 2017. This year we had another finalist from Russia. So we wanted to mention this opportunity to Russian women. And not only to Russian women here in Russia, but in other Soviet Union countries. Olga Kitaeva, she's one of the finalists. She founded Alter. So these awards and such platforms demonstrate the colossal importance of a sustainable business model for startups. And sustainability is an integral component of this modern context, and all startups should keep that in mind. And a DNA of a startup should be in line with the time, with the world. So which is your prerequisite for success and also prerequisite for your survival? So they asked me to provide some specific examples or practices of our participants. For example, Oriana Brejger from the United States, so her project is in line with CGD number 6. So she created a clean water and sanitation technology, so with modular on-site organic waste treatment. Then Christina Guiene from Canada, her startup meets 3 goals of sustainable development. And Christina created an engineering company that develops non-metal batteries for energy storage. Another example is from Spain. Andrea Barber, she comes from this season. She also meets several CGDs, so cloud software to automate and optimize all stages of creating solar power plants from design to their implementation. So these are 3 examples that demonstrate the seriousness of those startups. Of course, there are some other fashion projects in fashion industry, educational projects, farming. And our interest as a large company, when we support investments into startups with sustainable business models, they give us a chance to capitalize on innovations and technologies and help develop this sustainable ecosystem, which is critical for businesses. And also, let's be honest, it helps us to build proper image of the company, which social responsibility means a lot to us. Treating things with responsibility is a major objective for all cooperation. And ESG component should be part of our agenda, and we need to speak about it as well. I'm glad that you mentioned that. And the next speaker can tell us more about venture investments. Yanina mentioned, which is quite important, it's not just social responsibility, but it's also business. It's about business for corporations. One of the key drivers is a demand of this new generation, of that Z generation, that all of the corporation will be penetrated with ESG factors. So environment, social, and governance. So now we move to the next speaker. He's online. Stephen Ibanaki of Rex Capital, X-Prize. In fact, I'm very happy to welcome Stephen because he will present a perspective of a venture investor. He'll talk about drivers and factors for startups, and how they select as venture investors portfolio companies. Steven, over to you.
You know, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I want to welcome everyone. Now, I'm an investor, so I take a viewpoint because I work across 60,000 CEOs, 30,000 investors, and as a venture capitalist. And all of the areas matter now when making investments: social changes, tech transformation, CEO needs when they acquire companies, and global challenges. And it just so happens all of this is captured in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So as an investor, I see all markets illustrating this. For example, financial services now 150 trillion, and healthcare at 15 trillion US by 2024. And these markets are looking for ESG, SDG alignment. In addition, there are 60 trillion US held by 20 million investors, and 30 trillion of that is moving towards social impact requirement as good investments due to generational change, for example, Generation Y and Z. So from an investor venture capital standpoint, startups are doing better when they align with social impact. It will be a requirement in the next 3 years for you to have a successful startup. In fact, the world's biggest problems all involve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And when startups address problems with effective solutions, value returns, which is bigger than financial returns. And value returns are by definition across multiple stakeholders. So now, I happen to be on the leadership board, and we're always looking for transformational technology that aligns with the UN SDGs. There's the Ad Astro Fund, a venture capital studio, also looking for transformational technologies. And the reason is because they'll scale globally. There's also open platforms where startups apply. For example, the United Nations World Food Program has an innovation accelerator. And in fact, because of that accelerator, the work they do, they won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. They won the Fast Company Award last year and this year. And Google and Apple gave them the top app awards in December of last year. So in this innovation accelerator, we got blockchain, we got artificial intelligence, really any kind of transformational tech. And we also have a $100 million fund for scaling startups. There's also the United Nations AI for Good, which is the world's largest AI solutions program with 3 billion reach, and they have an innovation factory where anybody can apply, and I encourage you to do so. And from a corporation standpoint, there's the Microsoft Imagine Cup. In fact, I judge in all of these. Now, for the UN startup process, all you have to do is go to the UN ITU or World Food Program site and just fill up an application, and that's it. Then you get to do a pitch in front of a global audience, and then we have grand finals at the end of the year. And you know what? Skolkovo co-hosted with the Innovation Factory, and there's a fruitful collaboration on global challenges between the ITU and AI for Good. Now, what are some drivers for startups when you align with the ESGs or Sustainable Development Goals? Clearly, valuation growth when you solve the world's biggest problems, which scale globally. And that always happens when you align with SDGs. There's also CEOs. I told you I work with 60,000 CEOs and 30,000 investors. We now want to see this because it's a requirement for growth, because the social changes that have occurred worldwide. And there's even tools now to measure your impact as a startup, such as, for example, the Danish Management Society has a free app. It's called GGBN. You can download it from the App Store of Apple or Google. And there's even an alliance called the World Benchmark Alliance, which does the same thing, where you can benchmark against the sustainable development goals, but from a business standpoint. And of course, there's the World Economic Forum as well. So really, as a startup, as an investor, I'm telling you, and working with CEOs, I'm telling you, you have to engage with the sustainable development goals.
Отличная, вдохновляющая речь. Стивен, благодарю вас.
Thank you very much for this inspirational speech, Stephen. Thank you. So, and I would like to highlight that all the possibilities which have been mentioned by Stephen, they are not something remote, they are not something complex. In the end of last year, the nominees and the winners of the Global Challenge AI for goals of sustainable development actually joined the Innovation Factory program without any competition, AI for Good Global Summit, and they were pitching before the investors of a wide audience, and everything was dedicated to Russian technological startups. The pitch is in this January, actually, and we will create those social lifts which will help the Russian startups to go to international platforms, and everybody will be able to use that. And what is great in Yanina's presentation, she showed some examples of startups, and we could see the hashtags there, which showed one or several sustainable development goals for each startup. And basically, what you need is to find yourself among those 17 goals. And this is going to open many doors on the global platforms for you. Right now, we would like to skip to another speaker, Maria Vereshchagina, Sustainable Development and CSR in Tinkoff. Tinkoff was one of the companies who supported the Global Challenge program, and she also created a request for technological companies to solve their demands in the field of sustainable development, and also they looked for solutions which actually would cover the demands of their clients. Maria, I give floor to you. Good day, dear colleagues. It's my pleasure to be here and to join in this discussion, and I would like to share Tinkoff's experience in this regard. Implementation in introduction of this strategy into the group of companies and how it actually affected us and can affect the startups. I would like to speak a little bit about the fact that the corporations have started looking towards the sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. And it means that startups have to be rather eco-friendly and they have to be responsible. And it has to be they have to implement the SDGs in their strategies from the very beginning. And the successful startups are quite obviously depending on minimizing the carbon footprint on the planning stage, whether they're using the SDGs or not. And of course, this is due to the fact that the business is demanding their clients, their customers and their partners to go alongside the SDGs. And we, Tinkoff, we consciously choose responsible and eco-friendly partners. This is our approach and this is our investment into this action. So, of course, this is not about being attractive to the investors, not only about this. We're talking about the client loyalty of the Z generation, which are the core of Tinkoff's audience. Tinkoff's audience is young, and I would like to say a couple of words that the Z generation and the social approach and the social demands are actually have shifted to a different level compared to the previous generations. So in this case, we are talking about so-called hygiene of the soul. And we, Tinkoff, we choose several SDGs, which are actually reflecting our own DNA, and we have been successfully implementing them for quite some time. And we decided to act systematically within the support of the charity foundations. Before, we have been working with several local charity organizations. So, and during the pandemic, we understood several interesting things. The commercial organizations started to thrive for help and support. Many people and many animals required that, and we created our social service, which was called Cashback for Good. And we had more than 500 charity funds there, and Tinkoff is more than 14 millions of Russians. So and everybody could use their cash back to send to the charity foundations. And we created this service, and we saw that the clients like the big foundations who are supported by the public ambassadors, and the smaller funds were actually suffering from this. And we decided, so just recently actually we decided, and we have created the competition of grants, the financial grants from Tinkoff for the young funds and foundations. So this was a systematical approach to the sector of charity. And this way we are trying to support its sustainable development. And coming back to startups, I think that the agenda, the strategy within the SDGs for startups is a great competitive advantage today for startups. And I think that it's going to be a vital necessity for everybody pretty soon. I think it's more or less like that. Maria actually drew a great picture here, because she has shown how one of the SDGs is being achieved, the development of local communities and social departments of the social parts of the SDG agenda. It was very interesting to listen to Vyacheslav Tsyganov as well. He is the vice president of Tinkoff on technologies. So, and he says that its SDG helps him to find the best employees in the market. And this is one of the tasks he has to perform in order to develop his business successfully. Everything is all around, is based on the business logic. Let's go to the next speaker, Anshu Sanak, Director of Global Programs, Intel Corporation. Anshul will tell us about the initiatives of Intel in the field of new Z generation. Anshul, I give floor to you.
Hello, can you hear me well? Good evening to
Да,
everybody.
отлично.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your invitation on such an interesting and important topic of sustainable development goals and how startups can benefit. We all know that sustainable development goals offer huge opportunities as well as challenges, especially in this new COVID world. And a role of startups are only going to increase as we see democratization of innovation more and more. I guess the big question is, how do we democratize talent who can solve problems? How do we make sure that solutions and problems are in the same side? Not that the solutions are coming only from the Western countries or from the urban cities, but the solutions have to come at a local level to solve real local problems. And hence, in that case, we require a new thinking of cultivating Generation Z for solving local sustainable development goals with local innovation capability, with local startups. And that is why what I'm going to touch upon today is one of the efforts from Intel as one of the large semiconductor company and one of the world leader in ESG and SDG space on what we are doing to really democratize new thinking, new solution, new skilling around artificial intelligence to solve local problems and address and achieve sustainable development goals. Intel has its own 10-year corporate responsibility goals, which is called RISE strategy, which has a responsible supply chain, inclusive workforce, sustainable business practices, all enabled through new technologies and employees. And you can go and say this, we are one of the first companies in the world which has come up with a measurable 10-year goals around SDGs through this corporate RISE strategy. As we know, especially in the post-COVID world, right, artificial intelligence and new technologies is going to play a much bigger role. But especially for local innovation, which is critical for achieving sustainable development goals, AI-related skills gap, right, the local talent gap, are one of the big barriers for AI adoption, for local problem solving, for coming up with new startup ideas. And hence, in that context, we have a program which is very big in Russia right now. It's called AI for Youth. It kind of builds AI and local innovation skills among Generation Z. And when I say AI, it requires both technical skill and the social skills using AI to build local solutions, which local sustainable development goal problems can be addressed. It can be done in a trusted public-private partnership mode. It's being implemented as a shared value program across Russia. Right now, 32 schools across Russia are benefiting from this. The idea is to foster innovation and prepare next generation, Generation Z, for the era of Industry 4.0. I will just give you a few good, simple examples of how these programs come to life, how it cultivates local talent and local innovation, which can feed to the local startup ecosystem for addressing SDG goals. We run these competitions in Russia and everywhere else. Some of the examples of what students, after going through AI skill, when you really democratize AI skill for all genders, for all locations, for all ethnicity, for all background, and not just for the premium or for the city-based students or the city-based startups, right? But across large country like Russia, the magic is very, very evident. Some examples, for example, the first project which you see on my slide, psychodiagnostics. This is a project whereby students use computer vision to predict unstable mental state of the callers by the photo stream of the phone camera and send it to doctor well in advance, right, for further analysis and response. So that way they use computer vision and natural language processing for coming up with a local innovation, which is very important for sustainable development goal. Another example, which is my favorite, the last one, green lungs of the planet. And this is done by 16-year-old students who work locally over there in Russia. They use computer vision again to predict and forecast which area of the town or a city has a good forest cover, good tree cover, and which area doesn't have it. And really give this advanced analytics, advanced intelligence to the local municipality and to the local government. And this is being done not by the best of the best universities or the premium students, but by your average school students. So this is the kind of a talent your sustainable development goals should foster. And these are the kind of a talent we will need in the local startup ecosystem to build local innovation, to solve local problems, so that it can feed into sustainable development goals and address all sustainable development goals. I request you to go and check more and more such impact examples on the website, which is listed over there. That's our journey. We really want to bring this kind of local innovation capability to foster innovation mindset among all people and demystify and democratize new technology skills like artificial intelligence. Our bigger goal is to take it to 30 countries, train and empower 30 million people for current and future job, irrespective of gender, location, ethnicity, background, all that, right? And really partner with 30,000 institutions. Russia is one of the big countries for our program, but there are many more. So if you have any more interest in knowing how we are fostering this, feel free to get in touch with us. This is a very, very interesting journey for us to really bring in a new way of democratizing talent of the tomorrow, which is where some of these new emerging technologies like artificial intelligence should not be left only with the big companies or with the big universities, but should be democratized with all startups, with all kinds of organizations. And that's why such kind of a programs require a bigger partnership approach with government, academy, and startup. And Intel is there to help. Thank you so much. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, Аншу. Наверное, ключевое слово я бы для себя...
Thank you very much. I would note this demystifying SDGs and ECG principle for startups. It is great that Intel is not just looking at the trends in the area, in this area and Z generation, but you're shaping this. So I would like to move to Daria Chernozuk from Gazprom Bank, which is in a unique position between major players and at the same time being a leading bank. So tell us about your ESG initiatives. My name is Daria Chernozub. I'm representing here all of our bank, which has many facets. And it was even surprising to me to see how many ways of impacting that we have. Now, let me provide some examples why we are in such a great position. I just had this thought. 10 years ago, I graduated from Moscow State University dealing with nature use, environmental development. So that topic at that time was fairly new. And if to say something like sustainable development was really exceptional at the time, these days it's commonplace. And the fact that we are here with a large number of people, it's really good. Because in the past, if you had talked about environment or sustainable development, very few people would respond to that. But I would like to thank all the people and all the companies which are part of this agenda. And even though Ashnu Sanak spoke before me, I find it not being a problem because there's place for everyone there. And large banks are joining this agenda. And you'll be able to see how you can be part of that as well. And about our special position on this topic, we have a large number of clients who are individuals, and we can offer digital products to them for them to track their environmental impact. For instance, to use fewer plastic products. We have a lot of legal entities as clients, and we work with them as well to teach them about environmental issues and social responsibility. But Gazprom Bank has been an industrial bank historically, so we can develop these ESG topics and share it with our clients, and there are different levels of development with regard to environmental impact, and we have 15,000 people on staff. And our lives as staff members are a daily consumption. They can be more environmentally conscious, and being staff members of the company, following SDG goals on a daily basis, treating other people responsibly, and when we make this pivot, we can engage more and more people in this process, and impacts and effects that we may have are of key, because what kind of decisions we make is important, but also to whom we talk is important. If we are able to share it with others, if people do not know about sustainable development goals, you can learn about them. When you walk around, you will see those. You can see, actually, all the 17s are here in the park. So if you learn about them, that's a way to learn, by finding those boards. But that's not it. I will tell you a little bit. I will focus on our work with large companies. It's not about startups, but it's still very helpful, because green financing is something that we do when we talk about long-term projects or social projects, which may be something new for businesses. So it's great that bank has that project funding that helps to run those large-scale projects as development of renewables. We do this with Rosatom. So wind generators, wind farms are developed, and they'll be used for decades in the future. And so for materialize those large-scale projects, we need to join our forces in our wonderful country. And next thing, we have solutions that help persons who are clients to be environmentally conscious and be more responsible in achieving SDGs even though it may be just words without content. But we need to bring that content. We need to make it something real for the clients. We as a bank may not be in the right place to impact our cars, but we can help them to switch to cashless technologies, not to use plastic cards, to use biometric data, to use faster payment systems, and to switch to more effective systems. Going back to our wonderful startups, we as a major company, we cannot find all the right solutions ourselves or develop those competencies ourselves. It's easier to find them externally. If you're a startup that helps companies, processing companies, production companies to be more ESG responsible, we as a systemic player, we can translate and transfer them to our corporate clients. And when we select projects for green financing, we make sure that they have all the necessary modern technologies to achieve those goals. So we have work with Industry 4.0, and we help the companies to become more environmentally friendly. And we have a portal where you can submit an application and work with our retail clients. So to conclude with this thought, this is a collaboration, not with a startup, but with a digital artist. This is the basis. It's a brick. Why a brick? Because the artist could not have his show because of the COVID pandemic, but that show was done in Minecraft, and then the bricks moved from Minecraft to physical reality, and they became a symbol of our bright future. And they're made from used from plastic cards. So you can see it on in our booth, and there's also a digital image of that. So we produced it with the artist. It's part of our collection. So it's a digital piece of art that helps us to share this environmental agenda with those to whom it has not reached yet. And art is also a way to reach people and achieve our global goals. So come to our booth. We have solar panels, we have space food, and many other things. So you will be able to see how our company works with startups to follow ESG agenda. It's very important to note that ESG topic for Gazprom Bank is also about business, because green finance incentivizes larger corporations to look for sustainable solutions to develop their businesses. So today we looked at a range of drivers for startups, including impacts and corporate strategies, support from major companies, and perspective of venture investors who think that company valuation, those who follow ESG agenda will be higher compared to other companies. We also noted how green finance incentivizes major corporations towards sustainable technologies. I want to thank our speakers for this session. And speaking to startups, there's nothing impossible. SDGs are doable. Learn them, and that will open new doors to you. And in conclusion, I would like to say that in Pluto right now, that Z generation that we mentioned, they're sharing their technological solutions. Thank you.
Подошел к концу первый день конференции Startup Village. Я рад, что все это время вы были с нами. Завтра нас ждет не менее увлекательная программа. Десятки сессий, мастер-классов, стартапов и партнеров наших мероприятий. И, конечно, безграничные возможности для нетворкинга, поиска партнеров и инвесторов, а также для получения опыта экспертов со всего мира. До новых встреч!